Hey everybody, this is Matthew Pose with Pose Acoustics, and in this video, I'm going to be talking a bit about the Valerion VisionMaster Max projector. I'm going to go to their website and kind of go through it so you guys can see the deal they're offering, and this is going to be more of a quick take. I actually have been using it since just after CEDIA, but I want to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of the projector and what delayed getting a review out. So I'm going to do this one as more of a quick take with some of what's going on. And then at some point in the future, I'm going to do a more complete review once I've had a chance to fully address everything. So let me just show you some pictures I took of it, because I have the old one. It's called the, I think, Pro Master 2, something like that. And they sent me the new Max. And everybody was into this Max because it had a bunch of improvements over the standard one. So they indicate that it's brighter. Now, I will say that based on the measurements that we've been getting, it doesn't appear to actually be any brighter. But before I run with that, I'd like to confirm. The measurement seemed to suggest, though, that in its video optimized modes, it's the same brightness as before. It has an iris. So the way they talked about that iris was that it allowed them to go from something like 15,000 to 1 contrast to almost 60,000 to 1 contrast. A friend of mine, Sammy, had actually measured his and found that it is not 60,000 to 1 or 50,000 to 1. It's like 35,000 to 1, something like that. I actually think that's pretty good. I don't have a big issue with that. And so the iris was a cool add-on that was going to be able to enhance the contrast even further. I'll tell you in a little bit about my perspective on whether it's working that well or not and some of the issues I ran into. And then it's got lens shift. It actually has a replaceable lens. I believe it's an add-on lens, but it may be a full replacement lens. It hasn't come out yet, but this is going to change the throw distance so that you can place the projector farther back. It's like a long throw lens. So the biggest problem with the projector is that at its heart, it's basically a very, very good lifestyle projector. And it's not really built like typical home theater projectors. And so one of its issues is that you can't get it far enough back from the screen to use in typical properly done home theater environments. There we go. Like in my room, ideally the projector would sit at the back of the room where my current JVC projector does. And with my size screen, it actually has to sit about 2 feet in front of that. Maybe a little bit less. I think maybe it's closer to 1.5 feet or something, but close enough, right? You get the idea that you can't get it where you really would want to get it. And so that limits things. And without the lens shift, one of the other issues is that the projector needs to actually be roughly equal to the top of the screen. And that is a fairly inconvenient location given the height of my screen. It puts the projector down too low. So adding lens shift allowed me to shift it up. I can't actually get the projector any farther back from before, but that long throw lens would resolve that. So I think that those are good, worthy upgrades. I do think that the lens shift alone is a huge plus for the Max, such that if I was buying this, that's the one I would go for, even if the other features were completely useless. Just like before, it's got a tri-laser light source. So what are the big advantages of a tri-laser light source? Compared to the laser phosphor that's being used by other projectors or LED, which is becoming a dated technology, tri-laser is a much more pure light source. And so as a result of it being a pure light source, what you're getting is the ability to reproduce a wider color gamut than you could have otherwise. So many of you know the actual HDR standard originally, so it's always been based on Rec 2020 color. But originally, it was understood that there was no way to reproduce Rec 2020 color with the equipment that existed. And so they adopted what was known as DCI-P3. It's a more narrow subset of Rec 2020. And actually, most displays couldn't do that. So most of your LED, LCD type displays, most of your OLED displays, and really almost every projector on the market could not do that. Through some advancements in projector technology and advancements in OLED and LCD technology, it became possible to reproduce that and then some. And now, as time has gone on, we are at a point where we are hitting Rec 2020. So most tri-laser professional projectors, the Christie's and the Barcos, the upper end ones, are actually able to do anywhere from 95% to 100% of Rec 2020, which is really fantastic and looks amazing with the right content. Not all content uses that, but the content that does really looks brilliant. But cheaper projectors can't. There just aren't tri-laser projectors at lower price points for the most part. It's definitely not like the Christie's and Barcos, except this. So Hisense developed a small tri-laser projector light engine used with DLP using their smallest, I think it's 0.47 inch chip And they're using this. It's a single chip with tri-laser. So the colors are done sequentially on the screen. And they're using this for short throw projectors. And so the color actually looked pretty good. I mean, for those who have seen it. But the short throw has some issues like pin cushioning sort of from the lens where there's distortion. There's issues with contrast. It typically sucks. And so the image quality overall just wasn't great, even though things like color were actually quite good. So Valerion, which is an AWOL company, decided to make a high-end line of projectors for them that utilize that same basic technology, but in a long throw design. And that's this VisionMaster product that we've been using. It's really good. I mean, for what it is, it's really good because it gives you actually at least 92% of Rec 2020 color. It gives you contrast that's decent. The extended black level, the EBL feature works pretty good. It's got some problems, which we can talk about, but overall it's pretty good. It's pretty bright. Like we're getting probably, I would say, about 2,500 color optimized lumens out of this thing, which for a projector that's under $5,000-$6,000 for the best one they make, it's actually a pretty good value. I mean, it's hard to get something that bright with that kind of color, with that kind of contrast, period, for that kind of price point. Like they're just like, you can talk about all the other advantages others have, but they don't have all of that. So let's get into how it looks. So I took some pictures of it on in my room. It's black instead of gray. The old one was gray. So actually, let me show you those back side by side. So you can see the old one had this like almost greenish gray cast to it. It was really pretty, but the new one's black. It's a little more elegant. I like it. Otherwise, they're about the same. The packaging is totally different, though. They did, I would actually say that is like award-winning packaging. I think they did win a Red Dot Award, but I think it was for the design of the projector. But that packaging is wow. Like I've mentioned this before, I understand it doesn't make the product any better, but when you open like an iPhone or any of the higher end products where a lot of effort was put into the packaging, there's this sense of wow and like buildup of intensity around the product when it's packaged correctly. And this thing was like I opened it up and it's this big faux leather case. And I'm like, holy cow, this is a really cool looking case. I mean, it looked like some expensive bottle of champagne should come in it. And I start opening it up and I get through and I'm like, am I going to find like a luxury handbag or champagne or whatever in here? And then there's the projector. And I'm like, that is actually pretty cool. And I understand it didn't improve performance, but whatever it cost them to do it, I think that was an effort that was worth it. So in my last review, I'm going to show you another picture in a minute. In my last review, when I went through this projector, I had to mount it on this tripod that was just like the wrong way to do it, but it was the only way to do it without permanently mounting it in my room. And I was kind of reluctant to permanently mount it. I also didn't have a mount for it. It's relatively heavy for the style mount that it uses. And so I just did that. And like, I liked the projector so much, I stopped using my JVC, which is not as bright and doesn't have as good color. Has better contrast, but everything else about it really wasn't as good. And so I stopped using it and was just using the Valerion and this really goofy setup. And it was hard because like we couldn't have friends over to watch because the back seats were unusable. It looked terrible. People walked in. Gene came over, Gene De La Sala from Audioholics, and did a video of me. And they're like, why is this in the way? Can we get this out of here? And I'm like, well, not really. And I'm like, man, I got to fix this because I actually really like this projector. And even though I have to give it back, I'd like to keep it for a little while. And I'm just going to go ahead and mount it because I have to do some rework in the theater anyway. So I went ahead and mounted it correctly, which had some other advantages. It allowed me to better understand how mounting this correctly would work in a high performance dedicated theater like mine, and what kind of issues we might run into. And basically it all was actually pretty straightforward. We did not use their mount. I think that they're redoing their mount, and instead used a mount that I bought from another company, and I forget the name of it, Vision Beam or something like that. It was a nice mount though, and it turns out that it uses that standard NPT pipe fitting, so I could have used it with the chief mount that I have if I wanted to. The problem is I can't get that projector back to where the JVC currently sits, and so it kind of has to stay where it is. But anyway, I watched a movie on it after we got it all set up like this, and it was amazing. It's quiet. It's really quiet, so that in a room like mine that's extremely quiet, it does raise the noise floor, but it's not as noticeable even as that JVC is. It's bright. Like I said, it's brighter than the old JVC. It's not necessarily brighter than the newer JVCs, but again, this thing is like under $5,000. My wife and I watched a movie and really enjoyed it. She actually commented how good it looked. And I've been having really good experiences. I've told a story with the Pro 2. Anthony hasn't seen this one, but Anthony Gramani had come over and he and I were talking and hanging out for a while together. He'd come down to Florida for like a little vacation / work visit. And I said, I got to show you this projector. I think you'd be impressed, because he's a guy, he's a legend in the industry. He has been designing high performance theaters using the best projectors for decades. He's seen it all. And while I'm getting there, maybe my views are a little skewed at the moment. And like, we were supposed to be having a meeting, and we just sat and watched clips for like a long time, like I think like an hour and a half. And he kept commenting that he couldn't believe how cheap that projector was for the image we were getting. Like, it was really impressive to him as well. So it's a good projector, and I think it's in many ways more than what people have said it is. Let me talk about the problems though before I go to the website and talk about the deal they're offering. Okay, so the iris. I have not noticed significant pumping with the iris itself. What I have noticed instead is as it's shifting up and down for different brightness levels, and it is a little noticeable. I don't want to say there's zero pumping. It's not, I would call it relatively well behaved, but there's color shifting happening. And I'm not really sure why. I actually thought it was related to the EBL feature, because that was a problem the EBL had as well. But it was a very subtle effect with the EBL. With the iris, it is not subtle. It's quite significant. So last night I tried using the more aggressive iris feature, and while I did notice some color shifting, it wasn't quite as bad. I also did something there's a feature for reducing rainbow effect, and I turned that on, and I probably should have done one and then the other. So I'm not 100. It's possible that actually was helping to resolve the problem. But either way, it reduced it. However, again, there's a color shifting problem with it. It does do that. And if you're somebody who expects perfection, it's just not as refined as some of the other products out there in that regard, and it is causing that issue. The EBL feature has always caused a little bit. So basically, as the image shifts substantially in brightness and it has to adjust to give you those nice deep blacks, you will sometimes see a temporary color shift that will slowly go away. There's a different issue that I'm actually documenting for Valerion, because when I noticed it, I wasn't sitting with a pad of paper writing down, okay, this movie at this timestamp is causing this problem. But basically, certain types of scenes seem to be throwing EBL off. And it could be a combination of EBL and the iris, because it's worse. I had noticed it on the old one, but it's worse on this one. The image will shift in brightness dramatically. So it's not like pumping. Pumping is a shift in brightness, and it could be dramatic, but it's usually like a slow, like ramp up or ramp down. This is instant, like a switch, which the laser, of course, can do that. It can basically switch in brightness dramatically. And so I'm having some issues I'm noticing with that. Again, watched a movie last night with some different settings, and I actually didn't notice that shift at all. So it's possible that there's certain settings you need to use that are critical to prevent that. Or it is possible that movie just didn't trigger it. So I'm trying to test different movies and try to identify the scenes that are causing it, so I can go back to them and say, okay, this is the problem. Here are the scenes causing it. And then hopefully they could update the firmware to address this. For now, the settings that I'm using are, I actually have the EBL on high, and I have the iris on high. And I also have the rainbow effect reduction on. And that is all for the moment on the 2 movies I've watched, at least reduced all these problems somewhat. I had them all on low before because I actually thought that would reduce the problems, but it's possible it was the opposite. So it's not, like I said, it's not perfect. The other thing is that I think there's been some people who are saying that this EBL is so good that it ends up giving a contrast that's superior to the best Sonys and JVCs on the market. I'm not finding that to be true, but I can understand why people would say that. So there are certain scenes where it looks every bit as contrasty as what I would see on a JVC. I don't have a Sony right now to compare against. I have seen and done some work with Sonys very recently, including a 7000 ES over the weekend. This definitely, I think, in many ways looked better than that on a lot of scenes, but I didn't have them back to back, so take that for what it's worth. In any case, there are certain scenes though where the native contrast of the projector shows through because the EBL iris feature isn't able to compensate. So I've often mentioned it as like cave scenes. I saw one the other day though in the movie I was watching where it was a person wearing, it was the House of Dynamite. You guys probably seen that, done a lot of talk about it. So there's a scene when somebody's wearing a navy blue suit, and he's walking around in an area where there's a lot of bright stuff, and there's some darker stuff, including the shadow details on his suit. what I noticed was there was some murkiness in the shadow details on his suit. So in order to show the bright sun coming through the windows, I think it basically just had to make the image maximum brightness. And by doing that, the detail was lost in the suit. It wasn't terrible. I would describe it as similar to like a mid-grade Sony or Epson. So I don't think that's the end of the world, but it is starkly different from what you're getting when it's doing like a star field. Like it actually does a pretty darn good job with the star field. So if your definition of contrast is how does it look with scenes like that, this projector will look pretty decent with a scene like that. And if you put a really bright scene on there, it'll look great with that. But if you put on these more mixed scenes, it does struggle a little bit. And that was true of the old version, and it's still true of the new one. So the Iris didn't fix that. What I'm noticing is the Iris is making those starfield type scenes that much better. It's not really doing a lot for the scenes where, like I said, it's very, very mixed. There's certain types of scenes, and I probably need to start writing down timestamps so I can tell you guys, like I just haven't done that yet. But there's certain types of scenes that throw the EBL and the Iris, and as a result, it's the native contrast, which is only about 1,000 to 1,500 to 1, kind of shines through as the dominant factor. But none of that was bad enough for me to say, it's a terrible projector, don't buy it. I don't feel that way. Like I said, I have a JVC. I have access to high-end Christie's and JVCs and Sonys and Epsons. I like this projector, and I actually took the time to semi-permanently install it so I could enjoy it properly and really test it out. All right, let's look at the website. So you can see that they've got this Halloween mega deal on orders over $3,000, which this projector would be. It's saying 20% off. This projector is new. So if we go over to projectors, you have to do a pre-order, and they want you to pay a deposit. So what happens is if you do this projector, they will actually give you $1,000 off the projector, $1,000 off the projector. So we'll click on it so you can see what's happening. So you're paying that $100, and it's giving you $1,000 off. Go back. So they're giving you the date range you have, so you don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, because I took forever. $100 deposit gives you $1,000 off, and they're giving you all these gifts. So the gifts include a lens redemption voucher. It's giving you one of these stands, and it's giving you 3D glasses, which is all pretty cool. I don't have any of that to tell you what it's like. I'd like to check out the lens. I think it's not out yet. That's what they told me before. Color performance, kind of going through the performance of this versus others. You guys can go to the website and look at the stuff yourself. Trying to find where it gives you proper pricing on it, but I believe it's 5,000 or just under 5,000 for this version of it. So like I said, they're saying 50,000 to 1 contrast. I've been hearing from people who have measured it, it's not quite that good. The RB reduction feature they're talking about, which does appear to do something. I was a little surprised, but I haven't gone into it really deep. This is the upgraded lens that I haven't had a chance to test yet. It's built in Google TV. I mean, Google TV is pretty good. So it's built in Google TV is decent for those who have used it. Here we go. So the Max, the flagship model, is $4,999, and the standard unit is $2,999. If it wasn't for the lens shift, I could see an argument for going for this one over this one. Because of the lens shift, I really think that this is a better option. As I said, I'm not seeing clear evidence. At first, I really thought it was brighter. At this point, I'm not sure I am seeing clear evidence that it's brighter. And a friend of mine who measured it said it's not. So I would like to confirm that. I'm going to have a friend that does calibrations for me and lives relatively nearby come by and measure a bunch of them. And since I have both the Pro 2 and this, we can do a direct comparison. But it does have other features. So in addition to the EBL, it has speckle reduction, anti-RBE, the Iris, which I said you'll have to play with it if you get this because I think it's causing color shifting. The external lens support, which I haven't seen yet. The vertical lens shift, which I love. It's got a 0.9 to 2.0 if you get the lens, but otherwise 1.5 gigabit Ethernet, which isn't probably going to be a big issue for most of you. RGB laser, they say 100% Rec 2020. That isn't what we're measuring. That's not true. But it's, look, 92, 93% is still fantastic. It's way better than most of the stuff on the market. The formats it supports, it's one of the only projectors that natively is licensed to support Dolby Vision. Built-in speaker we don't really care about. Most of these other things we don't care that much about. But overall, you see the features. Like I said, it works pretty good. And this is part of the AWOL Vision group of products. This is their premium projectors. So do I recommend it? Yes, I do recommend it. I think it's a good projector, even at that price point. And knocking another $1,000 off and doing it for basically under $4,000 is a really good value when you compare what else is on the market. Is it... So there have been people who have watched my video and then they've gone to companies I work with, like Atlanta Home Theater is one of the companies I partner with. And they'll say to them, I saw Matthew Pose's video and he recommended this over other projectors. So I don't want to buy a more expensive projector. I want this one. So I think it's important to note that I'm saying this is a good value for what I consider its use case, which is that it's meant to be an inexpensive projector that when used in a light controlled environment can provide a really compelling image and experience. And under those conditions, that's true when the image isn't very big. Forget their 300-inch business. All that stuff is silly. I'm using it on a 137-inch or so diagonal 16:9 display. That's like as big as I would go with it. I really don't think you'd be happy going any bigger. The image brightness would just drop too much. So what do you do when you're trying to do it in a non-light controlled room and you're watching like sports, for instance? I'm not saying this would look bad, but there are other projectors I would recommend over this one. Epson has some new products, for instance, that are brighter. So the QL3000, it's $15,000. It's 3 times the price of this, or 16,000, something like that. So it's like 3 times the price of this. And I understand you might look at that and say, well, isn't this almost as good though for a third the price? This has better color. It has better contrast under most conditions. It does not have the setup flexibility and installation flexibility, which would make it more difficult to work with. And it's, like I said, color optimized around 2,500 lumens versus like 6,000 lumens. Even color optimized, it's, I believe, over 5,000 lumens. So this other projector is twice as bright. It's going to work much better in a non-light controlled room. So I would have recommended that projector to somebody who told me that's what they're doing over this projector. Doesn't mean this is a bad projector. It's a great projector. It just means that you got to look at the use case. Or somebody might come in and say, my budget is actually very flexible. I'm comfortable spending as much as I need to get a really good image, but I want to spend the least that I have to get a really good image. Matthew Pose said that the Max is a great projector, so why would I want to go and buy a Christie M4K15, which is probably closer to $70,000, right? Substantially more expensive. And the answer is because the overall experience with that Christie is going to be substantially better than this. The color is that much better yet. The native contrast is like 8 times higher. There's actually going to be a new feature coming out on it called VDR that is very similar to the idea of EBL, but more sophisticated. It's a true tri-laser, tri-DLP chip projector, and it's got many lens options. So if budget isn't a concern, that's a better projector. The image looks better. The contrast is better. The color, like everything about it is better other than it's noisier. But that's for a different client, right? So I think it's important to recognize when I recommend this, I'm not saying that this is the best projector money can buy or that it's so good for the money you shouldn't look at more expensive projectors. I'm saying that for $4,999, this is probably one of my top choices when image quality is of high importance. At $1,000 off of that, even better. But when budget allows for something else, depending on your needs, that something else may make more sense. So I hope that's helpful in explaining my view on this. But I also think you guys should look at it and say, well, you have a JVC, you have access to newer JVCs, you have access to these Christies, which when I say access, I mean, let me borrow them for a week or two. Not letting me keep them. That would be nice. And I went and mounted this thing, right? Because for day-to-day viewing, this is pretty good. Like I'm really impressed with it. And I'm going to have to give it back at some point. But for now, I'm going to keep it mounted and keep enjoying it. I actually am playing around with the other one, the Pro 2, where I'm going to eventually mount it in my bedroom with a bedroom screen, a drop-down screen that they sent me. And I want to show you guys a bedroom theater idea because we've done a few of these and I think they're fun and I think it'll be cool to show that. So anyway, I hope that this was a useful video. If you are in the market for a $4,000 projector with the deal that's going on, and this will meet your needs in terms of setup flexibility, I think you should definitely check it out. I don't have a special code for you guys. They're not doing that right now. So just go ahead and buy that projector. You can email them and tell them you saw my video. And, I think, like I said, I think you're going to be very happy with the product. If you're in need of something for watching football with the lights on, this is probably not the projector for you, and there's better options. But when you consider what this was made for, which is that this was designed to be like a real proper theater projector in an optimized light controlled room, the fact that you can get what this is giving for that kind of price, I remain convinced that it's one of the best values on the market. And I love the company. They've been really cool to work with. They take direction. Like if I give them things that I'm having as issues, they seem to be really responsive to it. They seem to really care about making a good product and getting it out there. There's lots of little things I'd love for them to improve. To be honest with you, I'd love for them to come out with a $10,000 and $15,000 projector that uses a better platform yet, but with a lot of the cool features they added. Refine EBL further, but make it even brighter. I'd like to see 6,000 lumens. Give us much more flexible lens. Give us, the larger DLP chips, which do have a little bit better image quality. But keep it in that price point of 10 to 15,000. I'd buy it. And I think we could sell them all day long to clients who would want them. And I think many of you would want to buy that too. But that's not where they're at. This is their price point. And I think still, for the money, a really good projector. So thanks for watching the show. I know I haven't had a lot of videos come out lately. I've just been crazy busy with projects, but I need to do more of these. I actually did a video that I didn't do a video. I did an experiment that I now need to do a video of, where I was testing how loud of an SPL I could achieve using waveforming to cancel out the modes, and then doing a CTA 2010 burst test. And it was pretty cool. I was expecting to hit like 130 dB at 15 hertz, and I did not. It was actually closer to like 122. But when we redid the math, better taking into account proper assumptions, we found that that was a reasonable number. And when you really think about it, that's actually a pretty big number. So it was cool, and I want to show everybody. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.